In today's presentation, we will be showing the proper installation of the water pump and timing belt on a 1.3-liter Suzuki Samurai engine. We also show the proper procedure of adjusting valves. Although replacing the water pump is not required when servicing the timing belt, it is a good idea since most of the timing belt components have to be removed to access the water pump. So we'll be showing the installation of the water pump as part of this video. The items needed for installing the water pump are the water pump gasket, nuts and bolts, and a nut driver and torque wrench, both fitted with a 10mm socket. So let's get started.
Just make sure our surface is clean of any gasket material or any paint in this case. Install our gasket. We're going to take our water pump, install it.
Here we install the nuts on the studs and the bolts in the remaining holes.
Now we're going to set the torque wrench at 8 foot-pounds. Start by just making sure they're all snugged up evenly, and then go back and torque them.
Now on to the timing belt and the associated parts. The parts needed are the timing belt cover, the timing belt rear cover and gasket, and associated hardware. You will also need the tensioner pulley and all the parts associated with that, the crankshaft pulley, and the camshaft pulley. The tools needed are a ratchet, a torque wrench, 10 and 17mm sockets, a nut driver with a 10mm socket, a pair of vice grip pliers, and a pry bar.
Okay, we're going to start by assembling this rear timing cover. Seal goes on the back side position. We'll put the grommets in. Sleeves. We'll torque this to 8 foot-pounds. Okay. You're going to get the cam pulley, Lyman dowel hole. That on there. Take a little Loctite. We're going to put some Loctite on the bolt, and we're going to torque it to 46 foot-pounds. And before we torque it, we'll just take a pair of vice grips, they're on the back side of the cam here. This is a solid cam. If you're using the hollow cam, you want to be careful not to grip it too tight. And we'll set our torque wrench to 46 foot-pounds. And just run this all the way up, line your timing mark here up with the rear timing cover mark there. Now we are going to install the lower timing gear. We're going to install the Woodruff key. This one's a little snug, so we're going to give it a little tap. See it down in there nicely. We're going to take our timing belt guide and install it.
So the bevel goes to the rear, is that right?
Back, correct. Then you'll take your timing gear, you'll line up your timing notch, gear notch on the key, and then you will take some Loctite on the lower bolt, and this is going to be torqued at 54 foot-pounds. We're going to take our pry bar and stick it in the back here to lock in the crankshaft.
Notice that a flywheel bolt has been installed in the crankshaft so that the pry bar can lock the crankshaft.
We'll take our torque wrench, set it at 54 foot-pounds. Bring your timing mark back up so the timing mark lines up with the yellow arrow on the oil pump. And in this position with the crankshaft timing mark up, your camshaft timing mark up, you'd be on top dead center number 4. Now we're going to install our timing tensioner. So we have our timing tensioner bracket and our timing tensioner, and you want to locate the hole on there and line up the little tab in that hole, and that's what's going to actually adjust the pulley itself. And then we're going to take it and we're going to install it right on the engine. And we're going to make sure that we have the lettering so you can read it as you're standing on it. And you're going to make sure your timing marks stay lined up. Slide that on. Your tension spring. Install the tension spring. Tension spring should be holding tension on it. I always let it kind of ride and then just kind of hold a little more pressure on there. We're going to torque this one at 21 foot-pounds and this tensioner bolt at 8 foot-pounds. So we're going to set our torque wrench at 21 foot-pounds, a 12mm socket.
Notice that the technician is applying a little extra force to the tensioner before tightening the tensioner bolt.
We're going to reset our torque wrench at 8 foot-pounds. And I always take the spring off because it's doing nothing at this point now, and it has been known to fall out and fall into the timing, so I just take those out. Once I use it to tension it, it has no purpose after that. Okay, then we'll just take it and we'll rotate it around. Make sure, line the timing marks back up to their points, make sure they are both aligned after you went around a few times. and at that point you are on top dead center number 4.
The tools needed for valve adjustment are a 6/1000 feeler gauge, a 7/1000 feeler gauge, a 12mm combination wrench, a standard screwdriver, a ratchet with a 17mm socket, and a torque wrench with a 12mm socket. To correctly adjust valves, you'll need to understand how valves are numbered. Beginning at the front of the engine, the intake valves are 1, 2, 3, and 4. Beginning again at the front of the engine, the exhaust valves are 5, 6, 7, and 8. An understanding of cylinder numbering is also important. Beginning at the front of the engine, cylinder 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, so now we're going to adjust the valves, and we're on top dead center number 4, both timing marks pointing up, and on top dead center number 4, we're going to want to adjust the intake valves of number 3 and 4, and the exhaust valves we're going to want to do number 6 and 8. Okay, we're going to do the intake valves at 6/1000s, and we're going to do the exhaust valves at 7/1000s, and those are cold measurements. Okay, so
the lock nuts are already loose at this point. If they weren't, you'd have to loosen them.
I'll adjust them so there's just a drag on there.
There should be just a slight amount of drag on that feeler gauge.
Then we're going to do the intake. And we're going to do on the intake, we're going to do, or on the exhaust, I'm sorry. We're going to do 7/1000s. And we're going to do number 8. Okay. Now we'll take and we'll rotate the engine around. One full turn on the crankshaft. One full turn on the crankshaft will put this at top dead center number 1, where your upper timing mark is pointing down and your crankshaft is at its original mark. And then at this point you're going to be adjusting on the intake side number 1 and 2, and on the exhaust side number 5 and number 7.
These 4 valves will be adjusted in the exact same way as the valves that were shown earlier.
And then you go back and torque the adjuster nut at 13 foot-pounds.
That concludes today's presentation. We remind you that all the parts and supplies required for this job can be purchased through our website at www.lowrangeoffroad.com or by calling 801-805-6644.